Runner safety is a topic that I am really passionate about as a female who runs alone most of the time. I have run all over the US, whether we're talking backcountry roads or populated cities. I have run in places like the Czech Republic and the countryside of Ireland. So I am very used to kind of navigating these different places, and that's probably why I get so many questions from all of you about how to do it and the confidence and some of the fears that you have. So, like I said, I get so many questions from you guys about confidence and tips, and I just wanted to be able to kind of go through some of those things. So I'm super excited that you're here. If you have questions, feel free to throw them out. I'm gonna go through some of the things that I think have made a big difference for me and some of the things that I have really learned myself. You guys also will probably have some tips, and I think that's awesome when you're able to share those too. The more we can empower each other, the better. There's always kind of the standard things that people tell us, like run in places that are safe, run in places that are lit. Unfortunately, that's not always enough, right? So there was a very recent attack here in Boulder. A woman was on a very populated trail and was attacked. And it definitely gives me pause every time I hear one of those stories, and it frustrates me. It actually makes me a little angry because I know that those stories and those things happening are keeping a lot of people from getting out there and enjoying themselves, because it is scary, and I understand that. In fact, there was a recent poll, and it was female and male, asking if they had ever been harassed. Now, the men were at 4% who had ever been on a run and been harassed. Can you guess what the number was for females? I'm gonna bet most of you ladies who are on here have a pretty good idea. So the number was 43%. So 43% of women on a run at some point have been harassed. And that makes me angry. Yes, I actually would have thought it was much higher, but 43% said that they have noticed it, felt it, been afraid. The result of that is 34% of women who stopped exercising outside. So they started doing everything indoors. And I don't want that to be our narrative. I want us to be able to take that back. I want us to be able to own our power. And that 34% I actually think is low, because I've talked to a lot of people. And again, there was a secondary piece of that that sort of said if it's dark out. And then the number got up to 50% of women who said they would only do their workout inside if it was dark. Again, I understand that. I've run at 5 a.m. in Miami when we lived there, and the bars didn't close till 5 a.m. So it was an odd time to be out, right? It wasn't just a bunch of other runners out there. I've run at 5 a.m. in Orlando, where there were also a lot of homeless people. Again, these things sound crazy and scary, but it comes down to then having some tools. So that's what I kind of want to go through today: knowledge, tools, and taking your power back. I want you to feel okay going out there. There is never a 100% guarantee that we're safe, obviously, but we can do things to hopefully tilt the scales in our favor, right? So one of those things that I actually really, really recommend is if you can take a self-defense class. A lot of running stores offer them. You can actually even talk to your local running store. I know right now is a little bit of a weird time for that. But even some of the things that I'll share with you here. What I found in doing that myself, and my dad was a big proponent of me doing that, so I appreciate that from him, is I learned a couple of things that I thought were really interesting. One was, instead of saying help if something is happening to you, it is again standing in your power and saying things like, I don't know you, get away from me. And I can't turn the literature around. It's the angle of the camera. If you say things like stop, I don't know you, and you are basically already like putting that space between you, versus saying help. you are immediately telling them that you are standing in your power. But also, people around you, have you ever noticed you hear help and sometimes you just think it's people playing, you don't really know what's going on, but when you hear someone say, "Get away from me, I don't know you, you cannot be around me," you immediately know what is happening there. So you are giving a signal to anyone who could be in that volume range of what is happening. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is such a change to me of just thinking I'm supposed to yell help. No, it even changes the way you feel to say, "Stop, get away from me," versus "help." And I encourage you, because I needed to practice saying it, like say it out loud. And sometimes when I am on a trail all by myself, I will just make sure that I speak out loud for a second, because we do have that, like, we don't yell, right, all the time in normal life. So just making sure that you actually feel comfortable and are going to say it, I think, is really important. And again, the second piece of that is, now that you are standing in your power, I mean, if something should happen, fight like crazy. So don't let them drag you. A lot of times you can get them off balance by going into them because they're anticipating that you're going to pull away. Go for easy places like their eyes, and don't feel like you need to punch. I think I always got kind of weird, like I have practiced punching, I can do kickboxing, but like this is not that strong. Like elbows, knees, like use those things. Think about your elbows and your knees. Those are super, super powerful, and that's hard. I mean, you whack someone with that, feels way different than us who don't spend time boxing trying to put power into a punch. And I think, again, that's another thing, we're just thinking about it, practice a few times, like you just want to make sure that you react. And I know for most of us, if something happens, there's going to be a second of being stunned, and that's okay. You just then go into, I can do this, I am strong. So a couple of the other things, though, that I have made changes with over the last year and that I was actually super impressed with and have gotten a bunch of questions about. So one is this Sabre safety alarm. So it's on my hydration pack so that I just know I never ever forget it. It also works as like a flasher. So whatever. It just looks like that's all you happen to have on there. But the other side is an alarm. That's obviously going to get more people's attention, reach a lot farther than you can with your voice. And because it's right there, it is super easy to hit. And I'm going to say that's the other thing that I learned in that self-defense class. We have this worry about offending someone and hurting someone's feeling. So even though that person coming towards you is giving you in your gut that something is wrong feeling, we don't want to make them feel bad or do something wrong. No, we're talking about your safety, your life. And oftentimes, let's be honest, our gut, we know, like the hair stands up on the back of your neck. You can tell something does not feel right in this situation. And that's immediately when you can kind of say, hey, stop. I don't know you. I don't know what's going on. And if they keep coming, then that's when you can hit an alarm. But what's the worst thing that happens? Right? We say, stop, I don't know you, and some guy kind of puts his hands up and says like, oh, hey, I don't know what's going on. I'm really sorry if I'm concerning you. And they step off the trail and you go around them. I mean, are you ever going to see him again? Probably not, but at least you're safe. So I think that's our biggest problem, right? We're so worried about maybe making someone uncomfortable, even though in our gut something is not right, that we don't take those actions. So don't be afraid to just say those things. Like, there have certainly been times where I was coming up on a path and I saw someone up ahead who did not seem like they belonged in this current place and time. And I stopped And I could see them watching me very carefully, and I turned around and ran the other way. So that is obviously part of being aware of our surroundings. That's part of the little tips, like only wearing one earbud so that we are definitely hearing things that are going on. I would say wear none, but I know a lot of you aren't going to run if you don't have music or a podcast, and that's fine. You can wear one and still be fully aware of what's going on around you. I think people underestimate how much women are generally kind of checking our surroundings. Like, how many of you have walked out to your car in a parking lot and looked in the back seat before you got in? I've certainly done that many, many times over the years in the dark. So I think we can be aware and still be enjoying ourselves. The other thing that I have started carrying, which I was against forever because I thought I was going to hurt myself, is pepper spray. So I specifically started carrying this one. It's got a little hand thing, so it's super easy, but it's a gel pepper spray, which means if I spray it at someone, it actually sticks to them. So it's not going to blow back on me if there's wind. It is going to stick to whatever I spray it at. Also, this one has a little flip. So that means the majority of time that I'm carrying it, it's closed. All I have to do is flip to open it. But that was my concern with so many of them, was I thought, I'm going to accidentally spray this and I'm going to hurt myself. So to that end, the other thing that I found, Sabre also has this practice kit. And I think whether it's for you, whether it's for a child, whether it's for anyone, this for me was a big confidence booster. So I have another one. This one happens to still be in the kit already, but I have another one. And I think, right, that is part of the self-defense, is just that practice component, that feeling comfortable. I mean, I've been running for almost 20 years and I wouldn't carry one of these previously because I didn't feel comfortable. I felt scared of it hurting me. So yes, the gel for me was a big game changer, but then also this practice, like I could take this thing out and see, how hard do I have to press? What actually happens when I press? What's the result? And that just gives you then immediately, right, a little more confidence that like, oh, I can carry this. Like, I'm not gonna hurt me. I'm gonna be able to react when something gets happening. So I think that's a really, really cool one. So I did link to all of these Sabre things because for me, they just have a good variety. They have a number of different alarms. So if you don't wear a hydration pack, they have an alarm that you can just wear as like an armband. They have a number of different kind of handheld runner ones. So, I mean, you can get black. You don't have to get hot pink. Although I also kind of like the hot pink because it's pretty obvious that I'm carrying something to protect myself. And I feel like that is also a deterrent, right? So when someone is kind of like looking for that person that they're thinking about going after, they are looking for the person who's obviously very unaware, but also looks like someone they could take down. So when you are looking more confident, when it's visible that you're carrying something and that you speak up, you become immediately much less attractive to them as someone to try to go after. So those are some of the big things. Now, I think the confidence of the running alone in different places definitely just kind of comes with doing it repeatedly, and also with the idea that I made a choice at one point that I didn't want to live my life in a place of fear that would keep me from doing something that I love. So I love to run in new places. It is possibly one of my greatest joys. And so that for me means doing the things I can to be as safe as possible and knowing that in life, anything could happen. I could just be out for a drive and something could happen. I could be taking a walk and something could happen. So I'm gonna try to make sure I'm on a path where there are other people. I am definitely gonna look for those lighted areas. I definitely check, ahead of time so that I know, if you're at a hotel, they can tell you what's a safe area. Is it okay to run around there? Or look for a running store, ask them for good running routes. They're gonna tell you where lots of runners go. So you can check in with those things before you head out. And then obviously there are some other cool things. A lot of the Garmin watches now have like an emergency alert on them. You need to test that a little bit because it likes to alert when you stop suddenly. So just making sure it's not alerting people all the time if you're like run walking or something weird is happening there, but that's a cool feature. Sharing your location, so with Find My Friends or on your iPhone, when you start a run, you can share your location with someone. That's another awesome tool that I've seen a lot of people using. I also think this was a good tip that someone else mentioned, which is not running the same route every single day. So I agree with that. I mean, isn't that right? People do kind of see your habits. So I do change up my routes. It's one of the reasons I stopped using Strava, to be honest with you. I obviously have a very public life. And so the idea that someone could pretty much figure out exactly where I lived by looking at my running routes was a little nerve-wracking. And even if you could set like a 20-mile-ish perimeter around it, it was still pretty easy to figure out where I lived. So I think some of those things we don't always take into consideration with kind of the routes and things that maybe we're sharing on social media. So if you're sharing consistently that little drawing that's really cool of your route, maybe just think about, did you drive somewhere, or is that route kind of consistently pinpointing exactly where you live? And just remembering that every once in a while, someone we don't want to see that could. So, okay, I think I always make notes when I do these things now because I just want to make sure I cover all of the big stuff and really hit it. Like I said, if you have tips that have really helped you in terms of running on your own and feeling confident, I love it when you guys share those too. Sometimes they're things that I don't think of and they absolutely help the other people who are here. And if you have questions, I have now spilled my guts with a ton of different information, so I am super happy to answer any of those. But I really wanted to make sure I hit on some of those because I've had so many great discussions with a lot of you lately who are wanting to try trails or who have been trying to just run a little bit more solo because that is the world we are currently in, but you've had nerves about it, and I understand all of those, and I just don't want anything to take away from your joy of getting to do it or trying new places or new runs.